happening out there, YouTube? I know you backyard mechanics are searching YouTube, looking for answers, as do I all the time. What we're going to be doing today, I got this beautiful 1996 Ford F-150 4x4. Unfortunately, the Ford Motor Company equipped these babies with these automatic hubs, and they are garbage. From what I've read online and from what I've experienced, they just don't engage when you need them to. So what we're going to be doing today is going to be swapping out the automatic hubs with the mile marker manual hubs. Some people use the worn, some people use the mile marker. I found that the mile marker were a bit less expensive and, in my opinion, probably equal quality. I'm not a serious off-roader like some, and some people like the name of stuff. So whatever your preference is, worn, mile marker, essentially do the same thing. So here we go. So what you're going to need for this little exercise is obviously some tools. You need your torque wrench. You're going to need that pick set, ratchet. Actually, if you're not going to be changing out the seals, I'm going to do the seals, the wheel seal and the pack the wheel bearings today. This truck sat for a long time up in Washington State, a lot of moisture, sat outside, and just want to make sure everything's okay. You're going to have the 2.5-inch socket. Sell them at Advanced Auto, about 11 bucks. You're going to have to get the castle nut wrench. What else do we got here? We got the kit. You're going to have to get some gloves. We got the manual locking hub kit. Actually, it's out of the box. Instructions, yeah. Well, you know us guys are, we really don't need instructions, but not real helpful, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But there will be a couple things that you'll need to go over probably. I got the grease for me packing the bearings. Like I said, you may not necessarily need to do that unless, I mean, you don't know the history of the vehicle. You need some rags. I'm going to pull the wheel. You don't necessarily have to pull the wheel, but again, for me, I'm going to be doing the bearings, so I have to do that. And I got my jack over here. Get some jack stands underneath this baby. We'll get her going in. For me today, it's 28 degrees outside, so the garage is a little cool. I got the heater going. So, alright man, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Got the wheel off. Now we're going to take a look at exploring, changing out these hubs. I have the 3-hole cap. Apparently when you go online and you start looking up your manual hubs, there's a difference between, I believe it's the 5-screw or the 3-screw. For the 3-screw, they say you need the nut conversion kit. For the bearing, the lock nut and the adjusting nut. And I already did the other side, so I can tell you 100% certainty that you do need that. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this cap off, and let's see what we find inside. Okay, to get the automatic hub cap off, you're going to need a Torx screwdriver. So I'll just go ahead and use my handy dandy electric, and they come right out, real simple. So go ahead and take those. And we'll see what we find inside this little jewel here in a second. And this cap is under no spring pressure. I've seen some videos on YouTube where they were. For my particular model, the 1996 F-150 4x4 with the 3 holes in the cap, they were not. Okay, so here we go. So what you're going to find is you got the basically the inner cap for the automatic hubs. Inside of here, you're not going to really be able to see it on the camera, but there is a lock ring that has to be removed to pull this cap. So you're going to have to get a, I went to Lowe's, and I got the pick set. Just one of these little doodads. You have to go to work in there. It pops right out. It just takes a second. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to work that little jewel out, and then we'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Well, with the pick tool, all you got to do is you got to find where the lock ring little brake segment is, and then you just got to get that tool underneath there, and you got to work it. I've seen people go in there with a little flat tip screwdriver, whatever their tool of the day is, and they just pop that thing right out. Took a little working for me, but like I said, just find the brake in the ring, and you'll get that baby out of there. And yeah, as you can see, lock ring obviously has the brake. Like I said, just get that tool in there and just keep working it, and eventually you'll get it. You might get frustrated though. So anyway, so here you go. So you got the inner workings of the automatic hub on the Ford F-150. Now the one I pulled apart on the other side was an absolute mess. It had chunks all broke off in there, and it was pretty well gone. So this one, we'll get in there and give it a good inspection. But basically all this stuff for the manual hub changeout, it's coming out. It's gone. So you have to get in there with a pair of needle nose pliers, and you're just gonna have to pull that stuff out. Alright, let me get my stuff together and I will be back in a minute. So let's look in here again. Alright, so the first thing you're gonna have to work loose. I know my camera work is terrible, I do apologize, but it's kind of this half moon, I'm gonna call it a lock ring also. However, it does just slip off. See it in there? I just popped it off with the little pick tool, and get in there again. And then you got a couple washers behind the spline there, behind the shaft, and they have the spline grooves in them, so you're gonna have to kind of just line them up and pull them out. So once I get that going, I'll come back with the camera and show you what's happening. So we're back in here in the hub. You can see the two washers in there. One of them has the spline grooves, and the one behind it does not. Okay, so I'm going to pull those off, and then we'll go in there and pull the rest of the automatic hub guts out. Now that I got the inner workings of the automatic hub out, you can see inside and take a look at what we're dealing with. We have the bearing adjusting nut in there. That's what I call it. Don't know what it's officially called. I've heard the spindle nut or whatever, but that particular nut is not adjusted very tight. Matter of fact, once you get into the kit, you'll see 30 to 40 foot-pounds torque down. Then they want you to back it off. You don't want that tight, but then again, you don't want it too loose. You don't want any vibration or mechanical play. That's kind of a trick getting that adjusted just right. Not too tight, not too loose, right there in the middle. Alright, so for me, I got to pull the hub off, and so I got to take off the brake caliper and get that adjusting nut off, and this hub will pull right off. So I'll be back in a minute. I'm gonna get some stuff off here and show you what we got. Okay, I'm back. I got the hub off, obviously. Looking at the shaft here, spline. I'll do a thorough inspection of that once I get all the grease off. There's our nut, our bearing adjusting nut, that's what I call it. There's that socket, and here is the hub. And you see the bearing down inside there. I'll repack all those with grease, obviously. You don't have to do this for this particular job. I'm just doing it once again because I want to just establish a baseline for this vehicle. I don't know when the last time was done. I mean, everything's in great shape according to the other side, except for the automatic hubs were just an absolute wreck. Now for this socket, it's a tight fit down in this hole. So you might have to tap it on with that, well, whatever your persuasion tool is. I used a hammer. Just tapped it on, just lined up the grooves of the socket with the grooves of the nut, tapped it on, and then I just spun the hub, and counterclockwise obviously to loosen it up, and then the socket and everything just spins. These things are just hand tight, so it doesn't take a whole lot of torque. So once you get it going, you might have to get it started with the socket, maybe, depending on how tight it is. But with the socket in there on the nut right there. Just go ahead and spin the hub. It comes right off. Okay, so I got my brake caliper set up out of the way, not rusting on the hose, obviously. I know it's pretty much a no-brainer. Just hoping it don't fall off there. Probably be a good idea to tie it up. I'll be careful. And so there you go. So I'll do a thorough inspection, and then we will be back. Okay, I'm back. Got the seal out, got the bearing out, and we can look in the inner part there. Cleaned all the grease out. Just wanted to do an inspection. Went around it, make sure that there's no discoloration, no pitting where the bearing rests. I guess that's called the race. Could be wrong on that. Don't know. Backyard mechanic. I'm into electronics myself. But anyway. So just want to make sure, again, there's no discoloration anywhere, pitting, or anything that would look abnormal. And same with the bearing. You don't want the bearing to have any strange colors on it and so on. We can see if I can get mine over here in the light. And bearing looks pretty good. Cleaned all the grease up out of it. I know some people soak them in kerosene, get all the stuff out of them. I just keep packing them until all the crap's out. All the old grease. So yeah, this one's in pretty good shape. I mean, it was obviously redone. Had probably a couple points within the 135,000 miles of the vehicle. It's in really good shape. Everything here is good. So we'll go to town on getting the bearings packed, getting that all put back together. I got a new seal to go in there, and okay, that took all but about 30 seconds to do. You just got to hold it with your other hand while you're tapping it with the hammer. So we're looking good on that bearing, and then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the outer bearing over there, which is smaller. So if you get your bearings mixed up, just remember your inner bearing's bigger, outer bearing's smaller, but you can't screw it up because the outer bearing won't fit where the inner bearing goes, and so on. Got the shaft cleaned up there to spline. I went in and put some grease on there too, so it can receive the hub real nice, and we'll be back. Go ahead and take care of that outer bearing and see what we got. Alright, so I'm back after getting the outer bearing packed and put inside. As you can see, got that done. I know it looks like a mess, but we'll get that straightened out here in a little bit. Got all the old grease out, packed those bearings, and there's no way around it. It is just an absolute messy job. I mean, it's finally got those gloves off, and they're inside out now, but on the inside they're just nasty. Also, you're going to get a little bit of grease on the brake disc itself. You got to get that off. So once you get everything back up, and before you put your brake caliper back on and your shoes and so on, you got to get this disc clean. I mean, clean like factory clean. No grease on that. So I don't know how to prevent it other than covering it with paper or a rag or something, which wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, mine is not too bad. I got just a few fingerprints and little strings of grease on there, but it's got to come off. So we'll go ahead and get the hub and the disc back up on there, and we'll start assembling the manual hub. Okay, now that I got the hub back on the shaft here, we're going to go ahead and commence installing the manual locking hubs. Alright, so with the kit comes the locking nut conversion kit. Alright, so you got one part that has a little teeny pin on it, and the other one doesn't. Then you got this little locking ring. Alright, so this guy goes on first. This is going to be your bearing adjusting nut. It's going to go on with the pin facing you to the outside of the vehicle. This is where you're going to get your bearing adjustment. You don't want it too tight and you don't want it too loose. So it's one of those things you're going to have to deal with. Alright, so you're going to put it on. It's a castle nut, so you're going to have a castle socket, castle nut socket. When I ordered my mile marker kit, I ordered it with it. So I ordered it from Amazon. Came with everything. Actually, I think it came from Mile Marker. They were just selling it on Amazon. So you're going to put your this nut on first. It's going to rest up in there, pin facing you against the bearing. Pretty much a no-brainer. But if you over tighten it, you can't even turn the hub. So not good if it's too tight. So they recommend 30 to 40 foot-pounds to tighten it down and then back it off 90 degrees. That basically is just hand tight. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put this one on and we'll see what we get. I got the bearing adjusting nut on, pin facing me. I got the torque wrench on here and they want 30 to 40. I got it set for right at 30 pounds. You're just going to have to trust me on that. The lighting is tough. And then after you get it to 30 pounds, 30 to 40, they want you to back it off. And that's what I'm going to do. Just back it off a tad and then check my adjustment. I'll be back. Alright, so I got the lock nut for the bearing adjusting nut is what I call it. And it's on, it's in there, pin facing me once again. And you can see the hub is free to spin. What you don't want to see is any play, any wiggling around with the nut where you want it. Some people go ahead and put the tire on, give it a good shake, make sure you got nothing happening as far as, you know, it being loose or where it causes some vibration. But if you follow the 30 to 40 foot-pounds, back it off 90 degrees, you're going to find that it's pretty much just hand tight. Don't over tighten it. Once again, I can't, you know, state that enough. I was reading a Ford F-150 forum where this guy said he tightened his down to 200 foot-pounds. If you do that, you're going to burn your bearing up in about 50 feet. It ain't going to work. Alright, because your hub is basically going to be locked and it's just going to burn up your bearings. So again, you want it to be free to spin, nice and easy. You want no vibration when you shake it around. You see mine's about exactly where I want it. So there you go. Okay, looking in here you can see the pin on the bearing adjusting lock nut, the inner lock nut, the one that we adjusted 30 to 40 foot-pounds, backed off 90 degrees, and then you have the spline right there about 12 o'clock. So the pin 11 o'clock, spline 12 o'clock. Now I want to make sure that my lock ring is going to mesh with that pin hole about 11 o'clock right there. If it doesn't, you just flip it around and it's kind of offset. You should be able to catch it, but it's critical that you make sure it does. All right. Looking at the lock ring, you can see that I got the pin meshed in that 11 o'clock hole from the spline keyway. That's kind of hard to see, but I know I can see it right there. Again, critical. Got to make sure you get it in there, and then the lock ring lays flat on the inner lock nut, meshed with the pin. Alright, and then you get your keyway set up properly. It's in there, trust me. Next thing we got to do is put on the outer lock nut. This is going to lock the whole thing down. They recommend up to like 160 to, I've read anywhere up to 200 foot-pounds. I couldn't get it that tight, so I went with 160 on her. I think the instructions for the mile marker kit say 140 to 160. So you want it snug. So, and that's all going to be with the foot-pounds with the castle nut socket. So we'll anchor that one down and see how it goes. Let's take a look and see what we got. We got the outer lock nut torqued down to about 150 foot-pounds, and that baby ain't going anywhere. So now we're going to get the manual hub all together and we're going to assemble it, and it takes no time at all. Okay, so before I put the manual hub on, I'm going to go ahead and take some grease. I'm not going to go crazy with the grease, but you do want to have some grease in there. I know the mile marker says do not pack their part with grease, and I don't put any grease on that, but the inner parts of my manual hub I do. I put a slight to decent coating in there. You don't have to pack it, you don't have to go crazy with grease. Just get some in there. Basically what it was when I pulled it out. had a pretty good coating of grease in there. We got the mile marker manual hub, pretty much the whole workings of the hub. This is going to slip right into the receiving area here over the spline, and we'll go ahead and do that. Just get it in there. Come on, baby. Alright. And that baby squeezes right in there. Alright. So now, this is where your lock ring is going to come in, and also your snap ring. We'll get the light back up here. The snap ring is going to go right there on that groove for the spline, and then the lock ring will go right back where you took it off from the automatic hub that Ford put on here. Alright, so we got the snap ring on, and it's hard to see, but you can see the lock ring in there if you look. Trust me, it's in there. So snap ring on, everything's seated correctly, and lock ring's in. I tried to get a pair of needle nose just to tug on the inner part of the manual hub, and it just crushes up against the lock ring, just to make sure the lock ring is seated correctly. Alright, so now we'll put the cover on, and put the screws on. Did it in a cross pattern, tightened it in a cross pattern. I think the instructions recommend 27 inch-pounds. Don't have a torque wrench, goes out low. Use the calibrated wrist. 27 inch-pounds isn't too much. Pretty snug. Just don't break them off. When you put the cap on, just make sure you rotate it all the way to free to release the spring. You put it in there, make sure it seats correctly, and then just like again, put your screws in a cross pattern, and you'll be fine. Now let's go ahead and see if this guy works. Alright, let's test this guy. Okay, so we got the hub out here, we got it in the free position, we got the joint that connects the shaft to the hub to the transfer case. As I spin the hub, I am not turning the shaft going to the transfer case. Well, that's good. Now, let's go ahead and lock. Ooh, it's going to be kind of difficult here. Actually, it turns so easy and nice. But now that I got the hub locked in, see, now we're turning. Much better than it was with the automatic hubs that never worked. So, there you go. So, we'll back that baby back out. Go ahead and go back to free. And you should hear it just click when it pops out. There it goes. Yep. So we're turning, we're free, and we're good to go. Now I'm going to put everything back together. Once again, I want to make sure that I got all
rocking back and forth, not
grease
loose.
off
That'd be indicative of that
inner lock nut, the bearing adjusting nut, not being seated correctly. Some people think that that's okay. I personally don't. I mean, the wheel is very free to spin. There's no problems. So anyway, I'm going to lock these babies in, take it off the jack, and we're going to give it a test drive. Alrighty, took her for a test drive, locked in those hubs, tested it in 4-wheel high and 4-wheel low, and she worked like a champ. First time it's been in 4-wheel drive since I've had it. Inherited the truck from my dad, and drove it out from Washington State to Colorado, and lo and behold, got halfway through Oregon in a snowstorm and realized I didn't have 4-wheel drive. So thankfully I made it, and yeah, she looks great, runs great, and the only thing that you'll have left over are those pieces right there. You have the cap, the inner part, the outer part, and all the rings, and you should be good to go.
Down in London town to go-go, with the record selection and the mirror's reflection, I'm a dancing with myself, when there's no one else inside, in the crowded lonely night. Well, I wait so long for my love vibration, and I'm dancing with myself, dancing with myself, dancing with myself, when there's nothing to lose and there's nothing to prove.